Happy New Year, it's me, Monabyss. I decided to start this new year off with the part of art that I really enjoy is character design. I have always enjoyed it. I loved it just since I was a kid. I love designing little creatures and characters, and it never stopped becoming a thing that I enjoyed doing. I did it all through high school. I have books filled up with characters that I may never use or draw again, but it was just about designing. So today I decided I would go back to my roots and I would redesign some of my old characters that I think just need a really big update. Today I'm designing the Star Child. I made Star Child when I was in high school. I made her, she went through a lot of changes. They were a small little representation of me that I used to use to kind of like manage my emotions, I guess, because I drew little comics and stuff. I have 2 entire books filled with comics that I straight up will never release. Sorry if you ever wanted to see them, because they were essentially my diaries, because I just for personal reasons I didn't keep diaries. I didn't trust that shit. You know, people look at a diary in a room and they're like, I know what that shit is. They look at some art book and they're like, it just blends in with the sea of all the other art books I have. I had like 50 of them at the time. They practically doubled. So it's practically impossible to find it. So I was just like, we Gucci. Seeing me draw was not an odd thing, so no one really batted an eye if I was just sitting there drawing in an art book. So it was my own kind of like personal thing. I never drew her much once I got out of high school, because it's not that I grew up, it's just that Star Child was kind of a way for me to manage like bad emotions. And as I slowly moved away and I got better and I got like, I went to therapy. I still am going, but I feel better. So I didn't feel those awful emotions anymore. Well, I do, but you know, I manage them better. I was able to create things that, you know, were off of happiness, and I didn't have to feel sad every time I was drawing, and so the Star Child wasn't really needed anymore. I did try to start making a normal Star Child like comic without all the sad stuff, and I was like, oh, nah, not happening. But nonetheless, I decided to straight up revamp the entire design. Star Child did get a digital. Most of my designs, character designs, didn't actually go to digital. Star Child was one of the ones that did. I never gave Star Child a name beyond Star Child because that's what they were. They were a child made of stars, because I liked that. It was pretty. It was everything, I guess, to me. I liked it. The original design consisted of just a little fluffy haired kid with a scarf, because I used to wear this big purple scarf when I was in high school, because I liked it. It was comfortable, and I guess I could hide in it. It isn't to say that I don't wear things to hide in now. I just wore the scarf back then, and I put it in a lot of my character designs that were supposed to represent part of me. Star Child was kind of like the sad part, but she was also able to represent a little more of the happy part. So I decided to try and like upgrade it and move her away from her being a part of like my emotions to be her own character, rather than a character I don't want to touch because of who she was, of like the fact that I can't draw her. Well, it's not that I can't draw her, it's that I'm not drawing her in the same sense that I was drawing her back then. I'm not making these sad little comics to make things make sense to me. So I made her into a proper character. Star Child did have an actual semi-plot. The comic I did plan for Star Child, because I don't plan to actually make it, I might as well explain a bit. She was supposed to be a fragment of a star, of like a god, I guess. And she was one of the bigger fragments, but she came down late. All the other fragments I did draw. There was Lova and Cross, and they'd all come down and crashed down to Earth thousands of years ago, and they had developed into their own beings, being able to feel more, and became like, rather than their singular feeling, which is what they were, like Lova was love and Star Child was sadness. I had like multiple different ones for different emotions, and for different feelings or different representations. They didn't just have to be feelings, I guess. And each shard was just a different creature, a person. They, at their core, they were still who they were. I had one for anger, and she was still a more angry character. But because they had landed earlier, they had developed themselves into fully rounded beings, other than Starchild, who had crashed down at the start of the comic and didn't know who she was and didn't know anything. She couldn't even speak. The others could also change their form to look more human. She couldn't. But because they're all shards of the same creature that created the universe, she naturally sought the rest of them out. Over the comic, they were all supposed to help her gain a sense of self. I don't know if I was ever gonna let her speak properly. I thought she was just gonna become a mute or something. She was just supposed to learn to be better, and I feel like that was more of a representation of what I wanted at the time. And she would become a full self. She would learn all the other emotions, and I don't know what the end goal was. I think maybe it was just to live happier together or apart, or just knowing who they were or who they once were, and maybe in the end just kind of realize that they didn't need to be the big collective god, because I think the reason Starchild was supposed to crash down to Earth was in case some big disaster happened, and all the shard pieces would need to connect together and become the big god being, and then they would have to deal with the fact that they would no longer be their individual selves again and had to recreate themselves back into that god, which most of them didn't want to do. So I think in the end they were just not going to do that, and they individually all together were able to defeat whatever was coming. I never actually made the big villain. I was just nah, we ain't dealing with that. I don't wanna. The big villain, it was not something I ever designed. Maybe someday I'll think of it, but no. They did have fusion forms where they were able to fuse together into two separate emotions, but they were volatile and unsteady. I think one of the forms was actually called Volatile. I did really like the forms, and I because they were separate from the characters, I would draw them a lot rather than the individuals. Yeah, they had, I had a couple of them. I had Remnant, and I had one called Malice and Havoc, but they were really cool to me. They were more I want to use these characters for things that aren't Starchild related, so I just combined them into singular characters, and I was yes, these volatile forms are the ones I'm going to use to draw in art a lot. I used to draw Havoc a lot. I liked her. So with the redesign, I went entirely off script. Starchild used to be just a straight blue kid with fluffy hair, a short shirt, and a scarf-like thing. It was more like a snood, because I didn't draw her with a proper scarf in the reference. I don't know why. A lot of the characters also had wristbands, because I wear wristbands on my right wrist. They're old, but they're staying there until the day they break off. It's more of a comfort thing for me. I haven't, Starchild's big hair has now, as I've redesigned it, I decided I wanted to move away from human aspects while still keeping semi-human aspects. So she's a human, but she's got claws, and her legs are they got 2 different ankles. I don't know what they're called. 2 different knees. I really like those types of legs. I tried to keep the idea of the mostly blue palette with a hint of purple, but then it just went it's blue and it is purple. There are 2 colors here. When I realized I did that, I was just her little alien antennas on the top of her head, they would be one of them would stay blue, but the other one I wanted to have a reference to the fact that she is connected to one of the other emotions, which is Lova, the one I'm gonna change her name one day. One day I'll change her name. Not today. I don't know what I'd change it to, but it needs to change because it was such a bad name. Starchild was an okay name. Lova is just changing the word love with an A in it. But nonetheless, I kept in the fact that she had wristbands by giving her purple bands around her wrist, because I just enjoy that. And I alluded to her original design's purple scarf by giving her a small purple ribbon bow on her neck. For the rest of it, it was entirely design. It was just whatever I felt fit. I tried to keep the tailcoat and the sleeves the same sort of pattern. I don't know if I really like, it's obviously the same sort of pattern, but like I got a really hard time keeping that shit the same. The Star Child always had like stars in her skin. I used to have like the full body used to be stars, and there wasn't, when I drew her, it was like I would draw the character and then I'd cover it in stars. So the first design of her in digital was she was just entirely blue with speckles and stuff all over her. And the second design, which is the one I think I used the reference of, she had a different kinds of blue everywhere, and she had blue stars across her face as like freckles. So I decided to keep the freckles on the face. I didn't do it so much across the nose, but more around her eyes. And I cut out the shoulders so that she could have speckles on and star pieces on her shoulders, because I really like that. Most of the rest of her body's covered up, other than that one leg that I cut up, because I love asymmetrical pants for some reason. Them things look popping. I used a lighter palette with the blues so that like everything else would like stick out a little more. I decided that it needed another color, so I chose for the eyes to be yellow with stars that looked like, if you look really closely, I think I draw it up close, it's a star and the other side of the eye is the shooting part, so it's like a shooting star. I'm not sure if I really, unless you like zoom in, you can't really see that it's a shooting star that I've drawn in her eyes. Even then it might just look like a line I've put in her eyes. I did like her really, really fluffy hair from her original design. The reason she had fluffy hair is because that's how I saw my hair at the time, because it was always hot and I was in high school and it was gross and I had short hair for the first time and it went really fluffy and I didn't know how to draw that, and that's how I depicted it in my art. So I decided to keep her with like mostly really voluminous hair, like really fluffy, but you know, less. I've just put circles everywhere that always annoyed me because it just looked like I was putting like sticking something on her head. You know, it's a bit more purposeful placement than just start at one point and start moving around. I really like her redesign. I think I might draw her a bit much. I don't know, a bit more. I don't know. It's really up to wherever my artistic tides may bring me. I really like her more alien design now. It really seems like, rather than, you know, being from her story, you know, she's not just a person who's blue with stars on her, she's more of like an alien-like figure. I think I might design some of the others in the coming months. I definitely want to redesign Lova because Starchild and Lova were two of the ones that I drew the most, and Lova was actually the like base for my fursona, which is Valentina von Hart, because I was like, I love hearts and pink shit, and I love that shit, and it's great. But I'll talk about more of that when I redesign Lova, which I will do now that I have said it. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my rambles. I'll see you next month. Bye.